Welcome back. The Bridge Project aims to alleviate poverty among mothers, and it is the first unconditional cash allowance program in New York. The organization operates in New York City and serves 600 infants and their mothers spanning over 20 zip codes. The program also works in collaboration with over 25 community based partners and service organizations to assist these families. Director of Programs Jessica Ramos Cuttone joins me to discuss this effort. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, could you tell me a little bit more about the Bridge Project and how it began?
Sure. So the Bridge Project is fairly new. We started in 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic, and that was for a reason. You know, the pandemic was something that really let our founders know that in times of crisis, people do believe in cash transfers, right? So there were all of these stimulus packages that went out to families who were experiencing poverty. There was, the child tax credit was enhanced. There was also all of these other programs like a moratorium on eviction. So we knew that, it was possible to respond to poverty, right, as if it was a crisis. I think what we realized and what we want to show the world, though, is that people are in crisis all of the time due to poverty, right? It wasn't just the pandemic, that families are experiencing this as an emergency throughout their lifetime, and that there is something we can do about it and we should continue to. So that's how we started our cash transfer program in 2021. At that point, it was still considered a pilot, and we have officially announced that we are a program, a full program this year, and actually up to 1,100 families are receiving our support, and I would say in the next few months that number is going to just rise, maybe even by at least 600 more families.
Wow, now I think it's so interesting that your organization kind of grew out of the pandemic, because I know for many organizations, the pandemic was maybe an obstacle or a hurdle. So can you talk about, in the pandemic, did it impact any of the work that you did? Did it make things a little bit more challenging, or did it make it easier since who the target audience was and who you needed to be helping?
Right. I mean, it's not difficult because when you talk about directly giving cash to families, there isn't a lot of in-person necessities there, right? Like we figure out how to get the money straight to the people and we do it. And that involves a lot of technology anyway. And so that was not an obstacle as far as other nonprofits who are doing direct service work. They had to switch everything to be online, and we were always going to use technology to provide this program. If anything, like I said, what we understood was that there was support for this program, for these types of interventions, that people actually understand that to alleviate poverty, cash is necessary.
Now, I really want to talk about that because I know that it shouldn't be controversial, but a lot of people have thoughts about, when assisting others, how giving cash can either help or hurt, the families in need. Can you talk about a little bit, how did your organization face that, and why your organization found that cash was the best option to help these families?
Right, and like you said, I mean, it shouldn't be this controversial. We actually find that people say that we're very radical for giving cash and trusting parents to take care of their children, where what we say is that parents are the best possible people to know what their families need. And so we trust them 100%. So when we give our cash, it's without strings attached. We do not tell people how to spend their money. We don't tell people that there are limits on what they can spend for certain things. And the whole reason for that is again, the trust, right? We need to build a culture where we understand that coming out of poverty is not something we can put into a neat formula, that families are very unique and their needs are very unique, and only they can decide what it is they need.
Now, in what ways could cash actually be more helpful than maybe some other forms of assisting a family?
Sure, and I'll give you an example. I can be a family that perhaps I have some flexibility when it comes to my rent, right? Maybe I know my landlord, maybe they're easy to negotiate with, but I absolutely have to have a car because my job is so far away that I need a car, or I need the car to do my job. That's the kind of math that I would do to assess where my money went, right? So maybe I can negotiate with my landlord, but I can't do that for my car payment. And so that's where my money's going to go. And another family might have the extreme opposite need, right? The rent is non-negotiable. They can actually do without a car, and maybe someone else is helping them with food. So you see what I'm saying is, only families know what they need, and only families can make those really crucial decisions.
Now, the organization highlights that they would prefer to minimize interference and maximize impact. Why was this your approach the organization wanted to take?
Sure, and I think, for the movement of just the basic income movement, that is the philosophy, right? And again, it goes back to trust. It goes back to understanding that there is no formula for getting a family, moving a family out of poverty, that family really knows what they need to do. And so we wanted to put it out there that we're starting this culture of trust, and, other people should follow suit, because it works, and the studies have shown that when you look at what people are actually spending the money on, we do have like voluntary surveys that we provide. The money is mostly going to things like food, goods for the baby, right? And then also things like childcare. You might be able to now get longer hours for your childcare, and so that you can work overtime. All of these things are, again, within the family unit to decide, and so that's why we're hands off.
Now, I want to talk about poverty and how it affects women with children specifically. Can you, highlight that? Because I think over the past 2 years, we have talked about poverty and how it's affecting, just anyone in our city. But how is it affecting, women, maybe single moms, anybody who has a child?
Yeah, I mean, we live in New York City, and everybody knows how expensive everything is. When you add the cost of diapers and formula and anything that's created for a baby, I mean, just the car seat, right, costs up to like hundreds of dollars to get the correct one. I think it's an added burden that we don't, and we're a country who isn't right now prioritizing supporting parents, right, through that journey. And so the reason that we chose to support birthing and parenting persons is that even in the prenatal stage, where you're just getting ready for the baby, there is all this stuff to purchase. And the stress of not knowing if your baby's going to have a crib to sleep in or a car seat to even leave the hospital with, we just wanted to alleviate that and focus on that parent really providing what the child needed.
Now, what is a typical experience for somebody who is joining this program? And, what is it like to sign up? What do they have to go through to kind of receive these benefits?
Yeah, I would say it's quite simple. If you meet the eligibility, you fill out an application online. And as we have a rolling application, so as we pull applications, we will notify those who get in. It is a lottery system, simply because we don't have enough funding for everyone, and a lot of people need this program. So if you do make it in the lottery, you're notified, you're onboarded, right? And then honestly, you get a card, and you start getting your funds biweekly from there for the next 3 years for your baby. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm so glad that we're highlighting this program, because I think that as well as many other people, had this idea about like cash programs, and it's always been so like demonized and in certain ways, and kind of hearing is like, yeah, driving your child to school is helpful, and you are going to need money for gas for that, but there are so many restrictions in other programs. Now, that kind of leads me to my next question is, can you just talk a little bit more about the need for a cash transfer program like the Mothers and Infants Lasting Change Allowance in New York State?
Oh yeah. So it's called the Milk Bill, and we're very excited about it. We are trying our best to use private, money to get this funded, but it's not enough. In Buffalo alone, we had funding for 50 participants, and we had 300 applications in 2 weeks. That's 300 people who qualified for our program, right? And it's also, we're capturing a very small audience. You would think you have to be in your first or second trimester of pregnancy, right? Live below the poverty line, and we had 300 applications. And so this bill would expand access to a program like this. It would actually provide the funding for 15,000 participants across the state. So we've partnered with Senator Jessica Ramos, my name twin, and we've gotten a lot of support, and we're hoping that it passes. We need government support to create this program nationally, and I mean statewide, and then our goal is nationally. We have big dreams. So yeah, that's what it's for. So look up the bill and show your support if you can.
Now, how does this improve emotional and mental well-being?
Yeah, so many studies show already that the stress from living in poverty is toxic, right? It's toxic for your brain, it's toxic for child's development. And we actually, our project has a research component because we are trying to prove that there is really a direct correlation between poverty and the development of a child. That's why we're really reaching children their first 3 years. That's the point where like there's the most brain development happening. And if toxic stress is present, then it's hindered, right? And obviously if your development is hindered, the long-term outcomes are, struggles in school, struggles with, work later on in life. It's all connected, and we know that the return on investment for a program like this is greater the first 3 years of a person's life, is why we're focused on babies.
Now, I wanted to expand on that because I think when we talk about poverty, we tend to think about the adult that's involved and how they react to the child or like how they need to support the child. But in regard to the actual child, what are the long-term benefits of, being a part of a program like this?
Yeah, so what we want to show is that with healthy brain development, with those crucial years being supported by, a parent not having the toxic stress that comes with living in poverty, that we're going to see better outcomes with health, first of all, for the child, right? So increased birth weight. We want to see like improved outcomes in school. We hope to see longer term effects where, the child is then successful in life. And we hope to continue our research in that vein so that we can make these really direct correlations.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit more about this amazing program.
Thank you.
If you or someone you know could use some support with childcare and would like to learn more about the Bridge Project, please go to their website at www.bridgeproject.org. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open after this.